Hello and welcome to the Primetime News Bulletin on Multi TV on Joy News Channel. Now, in the headlines, government opts out of debate for increased utility tariffs to await reports from PURC. EC Chairman Dr. Farijan takes to the stand to challenge certain claims by the petitioners in the ongoing election petition hearing. Meanwhile, concerned voters groups and GNUPs have expressed concerns about the ongoing election petition hearing. We'll tell you about Push-Pull, a simple farming technology that's improving maize yields in East Africa with great prospects locally. And Ministry of Education assures special schools threatening closure over grant delays. They should receive the monies by tomorrow. We also have showbiz, sports and international news coming up shortly. Now, in our first news, Deputy Minister of Information and Media Relations Murtala Mohammed says government will not make any statement on the ongoing public debate concerning tariff adjustments until the Public Utility Regulatory Commission presents its report to government on the matter. He made the statement at today's daily press briefing at the presidency.
Murtala Mohammed at today's briefing highlighted some aspects of President Mahamad's itinerary on his trip to France as well as Japan. Among these activities were the president's presentation at the French Institute of International Affairs, where, according to the minister, President Mahama made a case for the continent on its democratic development. He also touched on President Mahamad's interview with the BBC and mentioned his participation at the TICAD conference in Japan.
Some of our rural development, if you look at JICA is something that has helped several rural communities in Ghana. And the other time I stated here that when we went HIPIC, indeed we lost that opportunity of getting the grant, the yen grant from the Japanese people or Japanese government. His Excellency the President thinks that it's an opportunity to see how best he can renegotiate that agreement, because it helps, and it helps in many other areas.
Responding to a question on government's position concerning the current public debate on possible utility tariff adjustments, the Deputy Minister said government will be informed by what the regulatory agency says.
We haven't had any report submitted to government by the PURC. Until the PURC submits a report to government, I don't think that government would want to make any statement on this. They are mandated, as you indicated, by law to do that. So government is waiting as and when they submit a report to government, whether there is a need for upward or downward, if you like, adjustment of tariffs of utilities. Government would look at it. But one thing I can say is that government is always mindful of the burden of such adjustment on the Ghanaian people. Government is mindful of the burden of such adjustment on industries and businesses. So, and government is also conscious of the effectiveness of those utility services.
President Mahama has, however, indicated at the recent commissioning at the first solar plant in Navrongo that Ghanaians would have to pay realistic tariffs if they wish to get reliable electricity supply.
Now, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, that is PURC, will on Monday, June 3, begin the process of reviewing proposals from the utility companies for an upward adjustment in tariffs. The process is likely to be finalized before the end of June for a possible announcement of new tariffs to take effect from July. Already some consultations have begun ahead of Monday's review. Director of Public Relations and External Affairs, Nanaya Jantua, confirmed to Joy News that PURC has received proposals from the utility service providers and requested for highlights so they could be published in the media. She also stated that from Monday, PURC will begin stakeholder consultations, while the utility service providers will get the opportunity to present their case to the stakeholders. She further explained that comments from the public will be welcomed after publications of the issues in the media. According to her, depending on the issues presented by the water and electricity service providers, the PURC may or may not increase the tariffs. Now, in other news, hundreds of inmates at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital could find themselves on the streets of Accra by Friday if government is unable to supply the hospital with some vital supplies. Authorities at the hospital are threatening to close down the facility because they only have stocks of food items and drugs to last them up to the close of the week. Already, authorities at the Ankafol and Pantang hospitals, both dedicated to psychiatric patients, have stopped admissions due to the unavailability of resources to cater for the inmates there. Deputy Chief Health Service Administrator at the hospital, Peter Ajimangao, told Joy News the situation is critical. He explained the situation has gotten to this stage as a result of years of underfunding by successive governments. According to him, the lives of health workers at the hospital could be in danger when the patients get extremely hungry. This is because as the psychiatric patients become hungrier, they become violent and pose danger to health workers. Meanwhile, special schools have resumed classes, backing down on a threat to remain on holiday until the release of their grants. Authorities at the Accra Special School for the Deaf, however, say they have only suspended the action for 2 weeks and will proceed on holiday again if the subventions are not released. The Ministry of Education has meanwhile assured the grants will be released by close of the week.
This is the road leading to the school set up for persons with hearing and speech difficulties, the State School for the Deaf in Ejekojo in the Tema West constituency. As deplorable as it is, pupils have to trek since the school's buses that are roadworthy are not in use due to the lack of funds to fuel them. Officials of the school are worried pupils have to go through several difficulties due to persistent delays in the release of government subventions.
As we close and it's raining, it becomes very terrible to see those young children, you see, and then especially when they cannot even talk. It's worrying actually, but I feel strongly that they should know that their children don't pay school fees. And for that reason, anytime we are going to reopen, they should try as much as possible to make some provision for us.
The school's headmaster earlier told Joy News in a telephone interview the decision to suspend the action was arrived at a meeting held last week, Thursday, May 23, between heads of the special schools and stakeholders in the sector. They, however, say they will have no choice but to close the schools again if the monies do not come through.
In Ajava, we are expecting 25,327.5 Ghana cedis in terms of feeding grant for this particular term. It is likely that they will be making some part payments, and then later on, when the whole money is available, then they will top it up. That we have presented a petition to the government, and there have been assurances that they will release the money. We decide not to stay out, but to come, and at least let's come and do some 2 weeks and see what will happen.
The school in the meantime says it has managed to procure some cooking gas and food ingredients to last for the 2-week period. But the Ministry of Education says there should be no need for the schools to revisit their earlier threat.
The money has been released. The finance minister has written to the Minister of Education raising the funds. So it has been actually worked out at the Controller and Accountant General Department. So hopefully before the end of the week, they will receive it.
Exact day?
No, because of the process that it goes through. You know, we have a bureaucratic system, so it has to go through so many processes before the money actually reflects in the accounts of the institutions.
He explains the delay in the release of the subventions.
The revenue that the government generates is what is used in payment of such grants. You get a point. So it all depends on the generation of revenue. The ministry is not self-accounting. All monies that the ministry actually uses comes from the finance ministry. And it's a budget, it's from the budget of the ministry. And then, it has to go through so many channels And that was exactly what actually delayed.
Hopefully, all the schools will be able to convince their creditors to sustain them with supplies until these monies become available, as promised, by the end of the week. Abigail Adumakwenchi for Joy News.
Now, the school feeding program is to have an additional mechanism known as the social accountability mechanism. The latest twist is to make managers of the program more accountable to the public.
Established in 2005, the Ghana School Feeding Program aims to, among other things, provide a hot meal a day for pupils in public primary schools, as well as improve food security and reduce poverty in deprived rural communities in the country. At a regional consultation forum in the Eastern region, regional managers of the School Feeding Program said 21 districts and municipalities, 490 schools and 114,790 pupils are currently benefiting from the program. They include Ahimansa, Brim North, Ekuapem South, Brim South, Brim Central and East Akim, West Akim, Fantiakwa, Itiwa and New Jabing. The others are Kwahu North, Kwahu South, Kwahu East, Kwahu West, and Kwabe Brim, Lower Menya Krobo, Upper Menya Krobo, Yilo Krobo, Esojaman, and Suhum Krabwa Kota. The forum was to solicit the views of stakeholders for the formulation of a sustainable national school feeding policy. Interacting with participants, the Deputy National Coordinator of the Ghana School Feeding Program, Victoria Pokumenta, explained the rationale behind the introduction of the social accountability mechanism.
The program was also intended to benefit the marginalized in the society and those from deprived communities, but there was a deviation from this target group. School feeding program could also enhance local economic development and is more of long-term investment on human capital to reduce hunger and also achieving nutrition, education, and gender equality outcomes. In effect, school feeding program could be a platform for a wider socio-economic benefits.
Eastern Regional Minister Helen Adjoantoso, in a speech read on her behalf by the Regional Coordinating Director, S.A. Bauer, said the school feeding program is one of the biggest social intervention programs instituted by government to enhance the quality of education in the country. She added, government is committed to expanding the program to all public basic schools in rural communities. The minister pointed to the absence of sustainable financing, institutional partnership and responsibility, encouraging ownership by local stakeholders, and strengthening farmer and caterer relationships as some of the challenges plaguing the program.
Cooks have to be trained in hygiene and nutrition. Kitchens and dining halls have to be built. School implementation committees have to be capacitated to monitor the program and mobilize the community. Farmers have to be sensitized on available opportunities. There are indications that there are vast opportunities for our farmers and those in agro-businesses. This expansionist agenda can be religiously pursued if consultations are held with various stakeholders for their views.
Deputy Local Government Minister Baba Jamal also noted that the school feeding program has led to an increase in enrollment at basic schools across the country.
If for anything at all, the school feeding program has increased enrollment in our rural schools, either as a caterer, either as a coordinating director, because we know in the district we use the coordinating directors or some people in the district as the focal people. You are positioned in a place where you can become a mercy to somebody.
Haruna Yusuf Mpuni's report for Joy News.
You're watching the main news bulletin on Joy News on Multi TV. We take a short break. Please stay with us. Well, thank you for staying with Joy News. Now, still in the news, the National Labour Commission says it is in court to compel the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to implement its ruling on the Government and Hospital Pharmacists Association's placement on the single spine salary structure. GOSPA has been striking over their low grading on the spine and market premium. Now, according to Acting Executive Secretary of the NLC, Bernice Welbeck, the case will be heard in June.
The NLC earlier this year ruled that the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission adopt a new grading system put together by the Ministry of Health, which it had earlier ignored, insisting that complying with the directive would amount to a usurping of its power, as it remains the only institution mandated to grade public workers.
We have taken both GOSPA and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to court. We are asking the court to compel the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to implement the Commission's decision and also to direct GOSPA to call off its strike. It's a process, so the case will be coming on, I think, early June.
According to Bernice Welbeck, both the employer and employees during arbitration agreed to move the entry level from 18L to 18H. And it was based on this decision that the NLC gave its ruling, adding there was no reason why the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission would refuse to comply.
Here you have a situation where the employer himself is saying that yes, we have agreed to put them on a certain level. So that was made part of our ruling. So it isn't a matter that we just sat down and out of the blue gave it, but it was based on their own request to go and negotiate and come back. And it is interesting to note that when this ruling was made, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission wrote a letter to the Comptroller and Accountant General asking the Comptroller and Accountant General to pay the pharmacists based on 18H, making reference to the ruling of the National Labour Commission. I think they did not think about the rippling effects of 18H. It means that it has to be cascaded. So that is where the problem is coming from.
GOSPA is also in court over Fair Wages and Salaries Commission's refusal to implement the ruling.
Now, Chairman of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan, has told the Supreme Court in the ongoing election petition hearing there were close to 80,000 voters designated as face-only voters because the biometric registration machines failed to capture their fingerprints during the registration exercise.
Addressing a news conference here in Accra, he said the election was transparent, free and fair on the basis of...
The petitioners, through Dr. Bawumia, had indicated thousands voted without being subjected to biometric verification, contrary to the rules governing the election, and wants the court to annul the affected ballots. But this was challenged by Dr. Afari-Gyan.
Dr. Afari-Gyan, you heard Dr. Bawumia's evidence in this court on face-only registrations. He said there were 3,196. What comment do you have on that?
I don't know where he got that figure from, my lord. The figure is well over 70,000. In fact, the figure now is 70,951. Even the region with the lowest number would be more than 3,000. So the special voting is treated in the same way as the election is treated at a polling station, which means that it will have its own pink sheet.
He further explained that persons classified as face-only voters were eligible voters who had suffered permanent or temporary trauma, and that it was therefore incorrect to state that only 3,196 persons with trauma voted in the 2012 elections. He also denied claims by the petitioners that party agents were mere observers at polling stations, but were part of the team entrusted with responsibility to run a credible election. He also said no polling took place outside the country during the election, even though voters living outside Ghana were registered. He, however, conceded some errors were committed by persons contracted by the EC to administer the election.
Another transposition error that can occur at the Collation Center is taking the score from the print sheet onto the collation sheet. And that one also occurs. Maybe the, let's say the number is just usually a very high number. Is 11,000 and then he puts 1,100. When we do the training, we tell people to watch out for the possibility of transportation errors. We have seen them where they have resulted in the defeat of candidates who should have won the election.
According to him, the mistakes, though unpardonable, were committed due to the enormous pressure officials were made to go through on election day.
In a related development, a group calling itself Coalition of Ghana Voters has described as unnecessary the New Patriotic Party's decision to challenge the 2012 election results in court. The group, made up of some presidential hopefuls, maintain the election conducted by the Electoral Commission was free and fair, and that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama won the election fairly.
Conference here in Accra, it said the election was transparent, free and fair, on the basis of which the EC declared His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the validly elected president.
The current effort seeking to annul the votes of 4.6 million Ghanaians is in bad faith. But we acknowledge that the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana allows any citizen to challenge the outcome of a presidential poll by filing a petition in court. Our coalition believes that the right to vote is absolute and that the vote of one citizen, let alone 4.6 million citizens, should not be annulled on the basis of selective analysis and subjective definitions.
A member of the group and presidential candidate for the United Front Party, Akwesi Adai Odike, said the petitioners have faltered in the submission of their case, especially after they had, together with the other political parties, made an undertaking to accept the outcome of the election.
What I'm trying to call the attention of the Supreme Court is that the ground rules stated clearly that we should use challenge form when we are not satisfied with whatever transpired in various polling stations. Again, none of the candidates' votes were paid or reduced. Per the petition that they have put before Supreme Court, in an unlikely event that Supreme Court adheres to their demands, I, Akwesi Adai Odike, my vote is going to be slashed by half.
Another member and presidential candidate for Independent People's Party, Kofi Akpalu, was of the opinion the election petition is a waste of time.
How can you stand in Supreme Court and lie like that? So me and you, whatever they has I mean, his normal response is like me and I were not there. If we were not there, then what is your beef going to court? I mean, it's simple. So I don't understand why we are wasting our energy and our time. I mean, it's destroying our economy.
Failed presidential aspirant Madam Ekwia Donko, on her part, swore on her Bible that President Mahama won the election free and fair.
Say me ka say twa yam asem no mu na asem ne no kura ne ahwe Nyankopon na Nyankopon na asi hene wo Nyankopon ya de wa mampane de Mahama asi hene no ade nti na mo say mo be koso se mo be di asem se wo ma amfa no kura anto de dade a enya de a me de be ko bia ma kokko to ho pre no me de me ba buri akwa obi amfi me enti me ko ka no kura no na se ne mo afra me a no kura no na me ka no.
They called on the security agencies to maintain their vigilance to ensure the peace and stability the country is enjoying is maintained.
The Ghana National Union of Polytechnic Students has expressed fears the ongoing election petition hearing, if not well managed, could tear apart the country as happened in countries such as Rwanda and Cote d'Ivoire. It has therefore called on political leaders, especially the NPP and NDC, to manage expectations of its supporters.
Ghana National Union of Polytechnic Students concedes the petition offers a test to the country's democratic credentials, which has won praise the world over. It says the outcome may not sit well with the losing side.
We seek to reiterate that in spite of the intellectual debates and sense of humor that has for the past weeks characterized the court proceedings, the potentials of a gloomy projection in the near future is high. In this regard, we are calling on the respective legal teams in court, as well as party communication teams, youth groups, civil society organizations, and the clergy to join the campaign of admonishing the Ghanaian masses prior to the outcome of the case, hence its adherence by all.
Deputy Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Jifa Gomashi, who was special guest speaker at the Junub's organized 3rd Annual Women's Conference, where the remarks were made, underscored the need for Ghanaians to patronize made-in-Ghana products. The conference was on the theme, The Voice of the Woman in Decision-Making.
Business news comes up shortly. Revenue Watch Institute is challenging government to speed up renegotiations on the stability agreement with mining companies. The agreement offers the companies special privileges such as tax relief to sustain their operations. Chairman of the government committee set up to review the agreements, Professor Akilakpa Soya, recently hinted the review might take a while longer because government failed to carry out proper groundwork before closing the deals. There have also been concerns that renegotiations would lead to renewed tensions between mining companies and government. But RWI, that is Regional Coordinator for Africa, Emmanuel Kuyele, tells Joy Business the review cannot be compromised. Currently, only Anglo Gold and Newmont currently have stability agreements with government. Mr. Kuyele said demands by some other mining firms to also have such agreements could be justified only when the reasons are compelling enough. Now, still in business, losing crops to pests and diseases is the worst nightmare of every farmer, especially after a stressful planting season when they expect nothing less than a bumper harvest. Unfortunately, pests, poor farming methods and soil degradation have often denied Ghanaian farmers high yields. Joy News has been exploring the push-pull technology, a simple companion planting system that seems to have improved maize yields in East Africa.
Pull cropping system is aimed at warding off maize pest stem borer as well as controlling the parasitic striga weed. The system is also said to be effective in preserving soil fertility, which is highly degraded due to continuous cropping, with limited effort to improving its fertility. The technology, which was developed by the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology in Kenya, together with the Rothamsted Research in the UK, involves attracting the pests while driving them away from the maize crops using a repellent intercrop.
One particular crop called Desmodium, which is a legume crop, it produces this smell that is unattractive towards this smell. Because what you do is you plant maize and in between the maize you intercrop with Desmodium, and on the outside you plant Napier grass. And the reason it works is the moth now flies into the crop, and the Desmodium, the intercrop, is releasing the smell, and we know that the moth comes, but instead of attacking the maize crop, it doesn't like it, I don't like being here, and it goes away, and it goes to the Napier grass, which is planted around the outside, which is very sticky too, and it sticks to the Napier grass, and the Napier grass also attracts these insects that eat the moth, the stem borer moth.
Crop scientists have described the technology as simple and economical, as application of pesticides and herbicides is not needed. The pesticide particularly is usually ineffective as the chemicals cannot reach deep inside the plant stems where the stem borer larvae reside. Dr. Hughes says the system is also known to sustain soil fertility.
The Desmodium roots stop Strega coming out, so it also has this beneficial effect to prevent Strega. Unexpected, but an extra bonus. The Desmodium, because it's a legume-based crop, it's also good at fixing nitrogen in the soil, so that makes the soil a lot stronger, much better for the soil, so you get a much better soil, which means you can keep reusing the system over and over again. And the other thing is these plants also are very good animal fodder, which means that you can use plants to feed animals.
According to Dr. Hughes, the push-pull cropping system works effectively on smaller farms rather than large-scale farms, which require intensive labor.
It's a very effective system, but you need to work hard to make it happen. So if you did it on a very big scale, it would require so much labor it's unlikely to work. And of course, the more people you have, and the more inefficient it becomes, and therefore the higher the carbon footprint. And all of a sudden, is it quite as sustainable? Does it work as well? Also, we're actually not sure whether the whole effect would work on a bigger scale. It works very well on a small scale.
Over 50,000 smallholder farmers in East Africa are said to have benefited from the system, recording increased yields of 3.5 tons per hectare, up from 1 ton. As a major staple in Ghana, maize significantly contributes to consumer diet. According to a report by the Millennium Development Authority, it accounts for more than half of Ghana's total cereal production. Majority of the crop is cultivated by smallholder farmers under rain-fed conditions, with average shortfalls in domestic supplies of about 12%. With yields often below 1.5 metric tons per hectare, this simple push-pull cropping system could prove beneficial to maize farmers in the country.
Member of Parliament for the Efutu constituency, Alexander Markin, has called on insurance companies to consider developing products for the country's fisherfolk. He made a comment on the floor of Parliament while soliciting help from government and other benevolent organizations to help victims of a recent rainstorm in his constituency.
Winneba and Eastern Environs in the early hours of Sunday, May 19, destroyed about 50 canoes, some outboard motors, and an unspecified number of fishing nets. The total value of the items destroyed is estimated to be around 400,000 Ghana cedis. The MP for Efutu, Alexander Afenyo-Makin, later in an interview with Joy News, called on government to come to the aid of the fishermen as the fishing season has already started.
I'm calling on government, respectfully, to come to the aid of my people. And here we are not talking about government coming with blankets or, as it were, food items, but we are looking at some support that would help the fishermen to go back to work. Their canoes have been destroyed, outboard motors are out of order, their nets. These are very expensive items. And these fisher folks normally take loans from money lenders. And you know how the money lender, operates.
He said it is about time insurance companies take high risk by insuring fishermen.
Our fisher folks are so imperiled such that they do not have access to these insurance policies. So when any disaster, they have to look for money to get back to work. So government, through the Ministry for Fisheries and Agriculture Development, can get the insurance commission to bring the insurance companies together to develop a product to help these our local fisher folks. The construction of the landing beach site, which I'm urging government to speed up its plans to get the construction done. Once it is done, the whole economic activity gets increased.
Mr. Afenyo-Makin believes fishermen are ready to pay the premium for their insurance should the product be made available.
Sports is brought to you in association with
the Cowbell Cycling Tour entered its fourth stage today, with Isaac Saki maintaining the yellow jersey he won after the third stage of the race yesterday. Meanwhile, Samuel Enim, who won the yellow during the first two stages of the race, fell off his bicycle today. Samuel Moore is our correspondent covering the tour. He joins us with an update on today's race. Good evening, Samuel.
Good evening.
Now, what exactly happened to Samuel Enim?
Today, Samuel Enim fell at Bechim. Bechim is where we had the first point show, that is the hot spot. And when we got there, Samuel Enim fell on his bicycle, and the leading peloton were ahead of him by 4 minutes. That is a lot in cycling. But strangely enough, Samuel Enim managed to catch up with everybody else in the race today. He swallowed all the cyclists along the way and was first to arrive at the Jubilee Park in Sunyani. He won the stage victory, but his teammate Isaac Saki maintained the yellow jersey. So it was an incredible performance by Samuel Enim, because he was injured, but yet still he defied the odds and went all the way to win the stage victory.
Now, Samuel, can you tell us the exact distance that the race covered today?
Today's race was 109 kilometers.
What about tomorrow?
Tomorrow we'll be traveling from Sunyani to Tamale. So it's a long travel. So there will be no race. But on Saturday, there will be a criterium in Tamale.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Samuel. We'll be coming to you later in subsequent bulletins for more updates.
Okay.
Now, Ghana is set to host the Africa Beach Polo World Cup at the Labadi Beach in Accra. So that is how we end the main news bulletin. My name is Matilda Nyakwa Dennis. Before I leave, let's look at stories that made headlines tonight. The government opts out of debate for increased utility tariffs to await report from EC Chairman Dr. Perijan takes to the stand to challenge certain claims by the petitioners in the ongoing election petition hearing. Meanwhile, concerned voters group and GNUPS